All right, everybody, welcome back live at Drew's house, another edition. Hope everybody's doing okay out there. It has been kind of a weird stretch of weather going between fall and what feels like summer, but we're officially in fall now, so not bad in New England. Anyways, let's get right to my guest because you know how excited I get about music shows. They're my favorite part of doing this show is when I get to have a musician on and talk music and hear some music. Chris Smither in the house. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Good. First time on the show. I have to give you a warning. This is now being done from my kitchen, so I have the dogs in the house. If you hear any howling or anything, just it'll pass.
I have exactly the same problems.
Dogs, love them, but they can be loud. Anyways, how you doing, sir? I got to ask you on a personal level. First of all, how has quarantine life been? This is a crazy time, 2020.
It is. It's kind of, I don't know. Sometimes I think of it as a dress rehearsal for retirement, you know. but it's, I'm doing okay, you know. I've gotten into doing, you know, a lot of streaming and some Zoom, you know, like one-on-one things. You know, it's a revelation to me that there are people out there who will pay money to hang out with me after they can't come to a club. But you know that it's not a whole lot of it, but it's enough to keep my hand in. Also, it's kind of interesting to me that I tend to practice more because you know when I'm touring, I don't need to practice. But you know,
Yeah.
staying at home all this time, I'm right in this room where you see me now and playing, you know, an hour or two a day and coming up with some new tunes even. You know.
It must be. I would imagine it has to be, right? This is the longest stretch that you haven't been on stage ever,
In
really, right?
55 years, I figured it out. I can't remember the last time I was at home this long.
I mean, that's going to be, especially when you're not, expecting it. It's not like you're planning on taking a year off. It must be, it must kind of, have you been able to get your head around that, not being on stage all this time?
It's, you know, it's not really as bad as if you had asked me, you know, we're going to keep you off stage for a year. How's that going to sit with you? I would have been panicked, you know, but it
Yeah.
sort of snuck up on me, you know, and before you know it, you realize, hey, I haven't been on stage in 2 months. Well, I'm okay. You know, I haven't been on stage in 3 months. Okay, I'm all right. You know, but then recently, I did a couple of actual gigs, not streaming, but in front of a live audience, all very socially distanced and outdoors. And the relief was unbelievable. I mean, I could feel it, and the audience could feel. I mean, you know, they were feeling the same way. There's just this all overwhelming sense of, oh my God, this is what I do, and this is what I'm supposed to be doing, and I'm so happy to be doing it. And so then you know, I miss it a little bit more, you know, when that's over.
It is
But
amazing. It's amazing how we take that stuff for granted, isn't it? I went to a couple
it is
drive-ins and it's not like it's a big crowd. I mean, if it was a theater, you would have said it's a sparse crowd because, people,
right.
cars are taking up most of the spots, but it's amazing how after all this time, that feels like a big crowd.
It does, yeah.
So that's great. Did you get, it's funny, relief was the word that you used right there. That was a genuine sense of relief, almost like, I can still do this and they still like it.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, the little reaffirmation, you know, that things haven't gone completely down the tubes.
What about the virtual thing? Because you said like every musician, you've dabbled with that a little bit. Has that been a tough transition? Do you like it? I mean, I know you play and then you don't really get anything back at you. That's never fun, but
Well, that's one of the reasons why the Zoom sessions are so nice. You know, I do these little mini concerts, and you know, people maybe for like a wedding anniversary or something, and they'll get a bunch of friends together, and they all sit around in the living room, and you get a back and forth, and they can applaud. You know, people miss being able to applaud. I miss hearing it, and they miss being able to do it. But the streaming thing is kind of like you know, it's a little bit like old-fashioned radio. You know, you don't see anybody there. You know, there's no audience, and you just assume that there are thousands of people out there cheering for you.
you
So,
know, I had I tell this, my listeners and viewers will probably sick of hearing me tell this story, but I love it so much. I had a musician on this show who told me he was in the house with two other people doing a stream thing, and they would clap, and he said I had to put an end to the clapping because it sounded way too much like a sad bar back in the day. I thought that was a good story.
It is.
So tell for people who are not familiar with, let me ask you first, have you been writing, you've been writing a lot, playing? I know the answer to this,
I've
but
been playing. I've been playing a lot, and I've got just without even trying, I've got about 4 or 5 starts on songs that will go towards making a new record, and it's very I'm not the most prolific person in the world. It takes a real concentrated effort, and so the fact that these 4 or 5 starts have come without even a conscious effort is pretty encouraging. And so if I actually buckle down, I might get this finished.
you're surprising yourself in quarantine. That's
Yeah,
fantastic.
I am. I am. And the other good thing about quarantine is my vegetable garden did better this year than it's done in 10 or 15 years simply because I'm home to tend it.
Beautiful. Where is home? Where are you coming to us from here today?
Amherst, Massachusetts.
Amherst. All right. It's beautiful this time of year when we start to enter fall, isn't it, in New
It
England?
is. It's gorgeous. Yeah.
How about the roots? People who are not familiar with Chris Smither, where'd you grow up playing? What places? Tell
Oh,
people about the
I
background.
grew, sure. I grew up in New Orleans. And that's the first thing that sets people back. They say, "You mean you left New Orleans to pursue a career in music?" And it's an interesting fact though that most of the successful musicians from New Orleans have had to leave, including Louis Armstrong, and then they go back.
Why is that, you think?
Well, it it's a funny little whirlpool emotionally and psychically, and it concentrates on itself and sort of depends on people to come in from the outside and see what's going on. And for a musician, there's so many places to play that they don't have to travel, and they don't want to.
Yeah.
Most of them, they like being there. They like to get the kind of food that they're used to eating, and they like to sleep in their own beds, and it's just an inwardly looking thing. And I don't think I've ever lived in a town that was quite so uh, satisfied with itself and confident in its in its worth in the world. At the same time, they haven't the remotest idea of how to take care of business, which is why they needed so much help after Katrina. But it's a lovable place and unique in the American scene.
And in its own right, Boston and so many cities around New England have great music cities. What's it been like touring around New England?
Oh, this is home to me now, and I think I have sort of two running definitions of home in my head. One's New Orleans, and one of them is Massachusetts and New England. I don't know if people say, "Well, why do you live in New England?" And I tell them, "Well, it's halfway between Paris and San Francisco. It's don't have to go too far to get to either one, and it's got its own thing in its own right. So it's a nice place to be. A lot of smart people. I like living with smart people.
There you go. Are you a guy who likes, do you like your stretches when you do hit the road? I mean, are you really missing like crazy not being out there traveling from city to city, place to place?
I'm missing the playing. The older I get, the more the travel is just a necessary evil. But if you want to do it, if you want to play for the people, you got to go. And so I do that. But the performance is, I just love getting up and creating that thing, that involves the audience, that involves you, that sort of intangible thing. And then when you finish, it goes away, except for the memory of it. It's ephemeral, and so it has to be recreated night after night. I just love that. It's what I live for.
It still brings a genuine smile to your face. I absolutely love
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah.
Some people, there are those artists. I mean, you obviously love playing out to crowds, but there are those artists that will take more satisfaction in getting into a recording studio and laying down an album. Do you like doing that? Do you like that process of recording an album?
I do now. There was a time when it was the most dreadful experience. I knew I had to do it, but I would dread it because I never was certain. I always felt like it was final exam time, and I hadn't put in enough time on the books, and it was. But eventually, I started working with producers who truly understood me and made me comfortable in the studio. I remember the first one who actually did that was Stephen Bruton. When I worked with Stephen for 3 albums down in Austin, Texas, and the first time I sent him a bunch of tapes and said, hey, let's do this, let's do something. He listened to him, and he called me back right away, and he said, yeah, he says, come on down. He says, well, I got exactly the bunch of musicians to play with this. This is going to be, come on, we're going to have a lot of fun. And I thought, well, we'll see about that. Because having fun in the studio was not in my experience. And but he was as good as his word. He showed me how to have fun. I'll always remember him for that. That he's the guy that taught me it could be fun.
No kidding. How great is that? How about you personally? Who are the influences from you? Because I'm always curious. What made you pick up the guitar? What were you listening to? And what are your influences now as well? I'm sure those have changed a little bit.
Well, I don't pick up so much from other guitar players or anything anymore. Although I consistently am listening to Mark Knopfler. He's kind of a guitar hero to me, and I love the fact that it took so long to find out that he was a closet folkie in a way. And Mr. Rock and Roll. Then he comes out with all this singer-songwriter stuff. But in the beginning, I was strumming, 3-chord thumping bashes on guitars since I was 9 years old, singing folk songs that my parents had records of and stuff like that. But the first thing that I heard that really inspired me to get to work on the guitar was Lightnin' Hopkins and Mississippi John Hurt, and these country blues guys, and I didn't know that it was blues. I just listened to it and I said, this is one-man rock and roll.
Yeah.
I don't need a band, if I could do this, and then John Hurt, sort of expanded that a little bit into some more melodic stuff, sort of rolling, syncopated styles. And, I think if I had to pick a third one, it would be Doc Watson, though, which is, a whole other field, but
Yeah.
again, a beautifully sort of not overstated, but intricately arranged finger picking style. Beautiful stuff.
Okay, very cool. That's fantastic. Again, I'm joined here by Chris Smither, coming to us from Amherst, Massachusetts. He's been doing a lot of these virtual shows, getting a little used to that. And I do want to get you to play maybe something. I don't know what you're thinking about today, but I know we're talking about maybe doing a song to get a little taste. You want to jump into that now, Chris? Or
Yeah, sure. Hang on.
What do you think? What are you thinking about playing here?
Well, here's a tune from this new CD that we just released. This is actually the song. The record is part of a retrospective project that was started like 5 years ago, and we've been releasing bits and pieces of it over the time. And this is the latest installment. But this song I wrote specifically for the project. One of the questions that I get asked the most is how do you think growing up in New Orleans influenced your music? And it's a question that's very difficult to answer because I don't know. It's like, and I say in the song, it's almost like asking a fish what he thinks of water, or a bird, what he thinks of the air. It's just what he does. And, so the song is called What I Do.
All right, Chris Smith, take it away.
I'll give it to you. Down in NOLA where we listen, some of that, some of this, keys beyond the normal range. Everything's just a little strange, but mostly it's just a place to be. You've got to leave it for you see it sticks to you. I left before you did me in, down and dirty, don't begin to talk about my state of mind. All I wanted was to find a way to get between that funky and that play it cleaner too. Hey, forget about my feelings, I don't mind, but don't forget that second line. Can't you come on out and play? Let's see what you got today. How'd you make it sound that way? I never know just what to say. It's beans and rice and sticky nights and etouffee. Keep it in the groove. It just comes out that way, won't go back in like gumbo running down your chin. The filet's just a little thin, but slick as glass and dark as sin, with downbeats on the upside just to take you for a ride and make it move. Oh, I see they say, well, no wonder, it's a miracle. You ain't 6 feet under. Fish don't understand the water, they just do the things they oughta. Birds don't understand, yeah, they don't even know it's there. They don't have a clue, but just like me, they do the things they do. It's what I do, it's what I do, it's what I do.
Nicely done, sir. Well done. Fantastic. Little New Orleans at the end, too. They're very good.
Yeah.
Fantastic. You couldn't resist it. You sound, Chris Smither, everybody, fantastic. You sound great, sir.
Oh, I'm in good spirits.
Very good. I'm glad we could get that out of you today. That's very sweet of you to play a little bit for us. Thank you for that. And I actually like your whole. You have what, 6 different guitars I see there that we could pick from?
Yeah, these are the good ones. There's another 10 or 12 downstairs in the basement.
Are you sitting in the writing spot there? Is that where we do the writing?
I am exactly right here. Right here. There's a little table. This table with the papers and stuff on it, and I'll sit here, and I'll sort of scribble away, and then try it against the guitar part, and then I get up and walk around the room a little bit and beat my head against the window and come back and sit down again.
That worked out perfectly. I had dog participation and everything. My worst fear is always that the dogs are going to have a fit and start barking when somebody's playing. That's my worst fear. That worked out great.
I can't let the dogs in here. The dogs come in and they sit right next to the guitar. They wag their tails and beat time on the floor. It drives me crazy.
They would like to be a part of the whole process.
Well, they try to lick you,
Yeah.
There's this thing about the sound. I don't know that it makes them. I'm not sure whether they like it or whether they're trying to get you to stop.
So this album was kind of a unique process for you. Kind of drawn out, you said, over a period of time, writing these songs and putting them out there. What was this? What went into this album?
Well, this project was actually, it started, 6 years ago when we were sort of celebrating 50 years in the business, and so it was originally as a 50-year retrospective. We went down to New Orleans and parked there for 3 weeks and got a bunch of people in to help us out, and we recorded something between 40 and 50 tunes. And then we put them out a year after that. We put out a double CD called Still on the Levee. The levee was our playground when I was a kid, and in my heart, I'm sometimes still there. It's changed, but so has everything else. But at any rate, we put that out, and we had a bunch of songs left over. We didn't want to put out a 3 CD album, and we thought, well, we got at least enough first-rate material left over to put out 1 CD, and then the the record industry has a thing called Record Store Day. Are you familiar with
I
that?
am, yes. Yeah.
And they invited us to participate and do a vinyl, either a vinyl release of an old classic CD, or something that had never been released. And we said, here's the opportunity, So it's coming out on vinyl and CD because Record Store Day got delayed. It was supposed to happen last April, I
Yes.
think.
Record Store Day got delayed, but I also read that vinyl is, for the first time, make sure I say this right, and it's not necessarily because people are buying more records, but CDs have gone down and vinyl has now surpassed record
Surpassed
CD
CDs. I
sales.
read that myself. I was amazed.
Yeah, and I do
But
think
I love having a vinyl record of myself here because I like holding it. I like seeing a big picture, and I like being able to read the type.
there's something to that, isn't it? That's why there is a resurgence to vinyl too. It's not just that CDs are
Oh yeah, I
dropping.
know.
People are
Yeah,
into vinyl, and I think always will be, including me. But there is something to that, isn't it? The picture and the artwork, you get it all.
yeah, yeah. It's nice. It's nice. It's not this dinky little thing that you stick in your back pocket and forget about.
Absolutely. I have a lot of, we'll have a lot of bring the high school kids on every now and then if they're making news in the area. And long story short, I think some of them you say album to and vinyl, and they scratch their head and say, "What are you talking about?"
I know.
But
That's all right. I have a 16-year-old daughter. I live with that constantly.
yes, you mean Spotify, right? No, what?
No.
Too funny. Well, who's? I need the. What is the story? What was there like a moment in time when you said to yourself, that playing is going to go from a hobby to a career? Do you remember that moment?
Uh, it was more like a moment when I realized that it had become a career, and
Really?
that it was no longer something I was doing temporarily. It was just something that I was in for the long run. And there was never a conscious decision. There was just a realization that somewhere along the line I had crossed, that Rubicon and then committed to it.
So it just happened. That's funny. Interesting. So
Yeah.
there was never somebody who told you, like, listen, drop whatever else you're doing. This is where you need to be on the road playing for people.
No, it was just, I thought, I dropped out of school. I actually went to college for 4 years, but I never got the degree, and I never went back. I thought, well, I got to spend at least one summer, you know, trying this. And I left New Orleans and I made my way up the East Coast and got to, uh, got to New York. I spent some time in New York and it was, I wasn't comfortable there. And my goal really was to get up to Boston and Cambridge. I wanted to see the Club 47. I'd met a couple of people who played there, and they had encouraged me, So I showed up. Well, right away I started getting gigs in these little coffee houses on Beacon Hill and all over New England, all over Massachusetts, and things were going pretty well. I was having the time of my life, I was making money doing something that I would have cheerfully paid to be allowed to do, and then this was during the Vietnam War and before the lottery, and so being out of school, I was like prime cannon fodder. But once I managed to get out of the draft, I was I didn't see any reason to go back. It was so I just kept doing it, and I think I'd probably been at it, for a year or two, and then I realized, this could work. I don't have to do anything else.
Yeah, for a player like you and a singer like you, when you're one of those people that you listen to, you get every lyric. It's the lyrics are so important. I wonder, is there an event? I mean, you talk about being post-war or Katrina. I mean, you're so close to New Orleans. I wonder, was there an event that you tried to that really impacted your writing, whether it be subconsciously or not,
Uh,
or maybe they all do. I don't know.
you know, it's just, you know, your life in general is what impacts your writing. You look at it, and I'm not one of these people who writes continuously. I write for projects, and once I've got enough tunes for an album, a recording session, I do it, and then I don't write. I go into this sort of slumber for about 2 years, and then I start writing again. And it's a work of will. I mean, I have to force myself to get started on it, and I do it. And I've realized over the years that 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 period of 2 years lying fallow is what comes out in the songs. Whatever you've done in those 2 years. If somebody died, that's reflected. Like when my dad died, and it shows up in the songs, not overly, uh, not too heavy, but it's there, and it influences the rest of the tunes as well. You start thinking about mortality. And then, of course, you start getting older and you start thinking about mortality in a much more personal way. But um, and everybody goes through that. You see it in Dylan too.
Yeah. And he, of course, is that's a good example of somebody who's well, he's actually kind of a tough example because he's changed voices and changed styles,
Yeah.
and that's kind of he kind of breaks the mold on a lot. But have you noticed even like subtle changes along the way? Do you like hear differences in your voice from when you were a young man and just
Oh yeah, yeah. Uh, well, the whole voice, my whole vocal range, I've lost some off the top and picked about the same amount up on the bottom, so the whole thing is a lot lower, and and everything is slowed down. When I listen to my early recordings, I cannot believe how fast I'm playing
yeah,
and how fast I'm singing. And of course, that's a young man's thing as well. And any young musician plays faster. It's almost unavoidable. It's a classic problem that classical musicians have. And I feel bad for them because they have to learn to play slow when they're young.
yeah.
they, they, but you learn. You learn how to slow things down, and less is more, and leave more spaces. Give people time to appreciate what just happened, and things like that. I think I'm a more effective singer now than I was when I was young. I listened to my own records, and I think finally, I think it wasn't until probably in the middle of my recording career that I finally listened to a record and listened to the vocal and said, I believe that. I finally believe myself.
No kidding. Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting. So that's funny. You had to convince yourself. Again, Chris Smither joining us here. You are such a. I mean, you're a pro's pro. Obviously, you've owned your craft and you know your way around any stage you walk onto. I'm sure. But is there ever any room or any stage that you walked on and maybe you were next to somebody that you idolized and were a little bit starstruck? Anything like that?
um, Starstruck. No, there's some situations that are intimidating. I remember a long time ago I opened a show for Roberta Flack, and it scared me. I mean, it really scared me. It was at Symphony Hall right there in Boston, and um, I didn't feel like I belonged there, but the money was so good at that time. I think it was it seemed like an unbelievable amount of money for me. This is early '70s, I think, and so I got up on stage, and this one little white boy up on stage in Symphony Hall, and I think the audience, I may have been one of 10 white people in the audience, and I started playing, and the cat calls started pretty quick. People were, get off the effing stage. It's just like, what are you, what are you doing there? And finally, I stopped, and I said, you know, I'm being paid $500 to sit here and play for 30 minutes, and if you think I'm going to get off 1 second before I get my money, you got another thing. And I got the best hand that I got all night. Everybody cheered. They understood that. That was fine, and it worked out. But it was not ideal. But in terms of working with, I mean, and I loved Roberta Flack. I mean, I loved her, but it was not a fit.
Yeah, tough crowd.
Um, I one tour that I did with I did four shows with B.B. King,
Ooh.
all over New England, opening for him, and that was a revelation as you know, just how gracious the great man could be, and how much time he made for me, and how much time his audience made for me. I was just, that was a high. That was a high.
Really?
And it didn't make me nervous, though. That's the thing is that when you get next to somebody who's that big in your imagination and that influential in the very roots of what you do, the high that you get from that increases your ability to play, I think, if you're ready for it, and I
Wow.
was.
I bet that is cool. So he was good to you. Give me a good BB King story. Give me how do you reach out to you?
Well, he would always sit on the side and listen to at least one song, in my set. And this is, he was getting on at the time. He was starting to play uh, sitting down most of the time instead of standing up. And he would always listen to one, and he would always make a point, at the end of the night of thanking me. He would tell me things like, he says, he said, Chris, I can go out there and I know what I'm playing for those people, whether whoever went on before put them in a good mood or a bad mood. And you did the right thing tonight. He'd say things like that, and you just want to die out of sheer pleasure.
Man, that must go such a long way because I know for a fact that that's not always the case. I mean, there are big time acts that I don't know, maybe never even meet the
Oh,
opening
man,
act.
they never see him. I mean, you talk to people who open for Dylan, and they're told, from in front, if you see him, do not talk to him. You can talk to him if he talks to you first.
It
And they
is
said,
great. Well,
but
that's
it didn't come in. It didn't happen because they never saw it. But he's got his own reasons, his own way of thinking.
yeah,
I've learned over the years that you ignore Bob Dylan at your own peril. You know,
that's
you still
good.
got to pay attention.
And I would imagine as a songwriter who just played a great acoustic song for us right there, I can imagine Dylan's a bit of an influence on you too, right? In some way.
Well, how he influenced me in the way that he showed me that I could write songs. When I started, I was doing all these old blues things. I hadn't written any songs,
Yeah,
and it was Dylan that put the idea in my head. Well, somebody's got to write these tunes. You
yeah,
know? Why not me? And I don't think of myself as being influenced particularly by his style. There are other writers that did influence me, lyricists. Randy Newman, a good example. The way he puts words together, and I love Paul Simon has a sense of the sonic value of words that I'm always very impressed by. But
right.
but Dylan was the one that said, "Go out and write some songs." you know, that's what I heard him say.
There you go. All right. Well said, Chris Smither. This has been a pleasure, sir. Before I wrap things up with you, I do want to make sure I said that enough because I have enjoyed this immensely. Thank you for doing it.
You're welcome.
What do you? I want to end the show with. I always end with some rapid fire. If you don't mind doing a couple quick answers to some very normal questions.
Sure.
But before we do that, why don't you tell people, I don't know, what's on tap for the schedule here? Can they see you live at all? You mentioned you're kind of getting out there a little bit, but
I'm
what's
getting
on tap?
out there, but if you can go to smither.com and find out more about me than you ever wanted to know and about what I'm doing. Or, there's Chris Smither Music on Facebook. I'm front and center on all the usual uh, methods of talking to people, and it's all there. I got a couple of things coming up. It's sold out. A live show at the Word Barn in New Hampshire. Um, but I'm doing a streaming show from Passim, and that's coming up pretty soon. You can check that out. And you know, I'm trying to stay active, trying to stay in your face.
There you
Just
go.
invite me in, and I'll be there.
Invite me in and I'll be there. That's a great line. Club Passim, a great organization for artists too. We're friends with them, and so that'll be fun. They've been putting on great streaming shows, so yeah, have some fun with that one. All right, let's do it. Little rapid fire with Chris Smither to end the show. This has been a lot of fun. I'm going to ask you. This is a tough one to start, but who
Okay.
is your all-time favorite musician? Not influence, but who's the person that you just you say you sit back and you listen to the most?
Mark Knopfler.
Okay, that's the one. Very good.
Yeah.
Favorite venue you ever played?
Ooh, too many, too many. I like clubs. I'll go that far and to say, and there are so many really fine clubs going from Freight and Salvage in San Francisco, the Ark in Ann Arbor, Michigan. Passim is a home to me. That was the old 47, originally, and that'll have to do it.
All right. These places, I just hope they all stay strong during this pandemic. I know so many of them have already struggled to stay afloat, and I hope so many of these great music clubs can stay going because we need more live music out there, don't we?
We do.
Favorite TV show?
TV show. Oh man. It's funny. I haven't even thought about TV shows in so long.
Even
I
in
would,
quarantine, you weren't one of those Netflix people during quarantine, huh?
oh man, I watch all those streaming services. It's constant TV show. When I was a kid, I loved during that sort of golden age of television. I loved everything from Twilight Zone, Perry Mason. I liked all the westerns, all that stuff.
There you go. That's a great answer. Favorite movie?
Lonely Are the Brave.
Okay, very good. Favorite book?
Kirk Douglas. Favorite book. Oh man.
I usually only ask that to people who show me the bookcase on their right.
you know, out of the literally tens of thousands of books I've read, a favorite book. I can tell you that I have read Huckleberry Finn probably a dozen times.
Really?
Yes.
What
I
puts
can
you?
recite whole passages from it. And first time I read it, I was 10 years old.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Wow. Is that what makes you go back to it? You think so much?
It is such a before its time picture of America, of what makes America, all the contradictions, all the terrible human tragedies and the sometime willingness to tackle them.
Yeah.
It's just it's phenomenal. People think of it as a kid's book, and Tom Sawyer is a kid's book, but Huckleberry Finn is timeless.
Wow. Well said. All right. Very good. Favorite quarantine activity?
Actually, playing my guitar.
I thought that might be the answer. All right. That's very fair. What is the story from the road that was most memorable to you? It could be good. It could be bad. Let's not count the Symphony Hall story. What's the story from the road that you'll never forget? Sticks with you every time you go on stage.
Oh, oh, hmm. Oh, now you got me, man. I would have told you the Roberta Flack story. You're right, though.
We could count that one as that. Here, I'll ask you a different version of that question.
Okay.
What is the best professional advice you ever received?
Don't learn how to do anything else.
That's great. You remember who told you that, or?
Yeah. Eric von Schmidt.
Okay. Wow.
Because, he said, don't learn how to do anything else because if times get tough, you'll go do that instead of what you're doing.
And you're one of the lucky ones who's been able to live all these years of playing music. Not always the easiest thing to do in this industry.
True.
What do you attribute it to, and what's the key to success, you think, after all these years?
The biggest key to success is perseverance.
Yeah.
It's there's so many things that go into it. Perseverance is big. You got to have a modicum of talent, but past a certain level, everybody's got the talent. So it just depends on how long you're willing to stick it out. And try to make something happen. There's also a big element of luck, as there is in anything else. Just being in the right place at the right time for certain things to happen. Learning that you can't do it by yourself. You need people on your side, and how to cultivate those and pick the good ones from the bad ones. And it's much like life, you
Yeah.
know, in general. It is life, you know. There's nothing that special about the musician's life except for the fact, and this is a big except, that you get to do something that you love.
Yeah, absolutely. That is a great thing if you could find that, isn't it? That's good advice
Yeah.
for anybody out there. And lastly, I would ask you, well, maybe two more. What is the record that you keep going back to? The one that is there one? I mean, I'm sure you listen to all sorts of music, but was there one record that was kind of a staple for you, and you said, "Wow, that's an unbelievable record. I want to make one of those one day."
Um, those first two Buffalo Springfield albums, I loved them.
Yeah,
They were totally addictive.
that is a good answer right there. Can you hear the dogs? They're winding up.
But actually, if I could make one more addition to those two, and the first Cream album, Disraeli Gears.
The first Cream album, did you say?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Disraeli. Yeah, it
okay.
was called Disraeli Gears, and that was kind of amazing because it showed you what you could do with contemporary approach to lyrics in a blues setting. I love that.
Oh, absolutely. All right, that's good. And who's your favorite guitar player? Was there somebody?
Knopfler. We already talked about that.
I knew a favorite artist, but was there somebody particular? Because there's a lot of great individual guitar players too.
Well, he's one of them. You know, that's part of why I love him. I
Yeah,
just love the sound. Yeah.
love the sound. Okay, understood. And who's the nicest man in the music business? Who is the nicest artist you ever bumped into besides BB King? You already gave him enough.
The nicest. Oh Lord, this will get me in trouble. You know,
I
all
didn't
the
ask
good
you to
ones
mean
are
it.
nice. All the good ones are really nice. You know, it's really most of I shouldn't say all of them, but most of them. I think John Prine would be up there.
John Prine. Did you get to meet John?
Oh, and we were good parents. We were friends. Yeah,
Oh man, what a
that
what a
was a heavy
loss.
loss. That was a heavy, heavy loss.
So this has been a tough year. I don't think I realized how close you guys were. What was that like getting that news? Because I know it caught me off guard as just a fan from a distance.
He was, he asked me any number of times. He brought me on board to open, partial tours for him. 4 and 5 shows, all the way from one end of the country to the other, and he literally opened up whole cities for me. Made them available to me. He would go out. He would. Uh, I remember when we played in San Diego, out on Coronado Island in a big theater, and he didn't send me out there to do 20-minute set. He would send me out to do a full like 45, 50-minute set. And I loved his music, and I quickly discovered that a John Prine audience was just a Chris Smither audience that hadn't heard me yet. It was just the most wonderful fit, and yet it was different enough that we didn't eat each other's lunch. And I tried to thank him one time. I said, John, thanks so much, for doing this, for me. And he just looked at me. He said, Chris, I don't do it for you. I do it for me. It
Yeah.
was,
Great story. It's always true, yeah. And when he asked you to play with him, you had to play, right? That was the one rule.
absolutely.
Too great. I think that's a good way to end Chris Smither. We'll end with a great John Prine story. May he rest in peace. What an artist.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry for your loss of your friend, but you sound fantastic. Thank you so much for playing a tune for us today. Thank you much for so much for a very enjoyable talk. I enjoyed it very much. I hope you did.
I did. I had a great time. It's good to see you. Thanks for everything.
And you can say hello to your fans. I'm sure they'll find this somehow. Yeah, you have a great fan base. So hello to all the Chris Smither fans out there. What a guy.
All right.
Thank you, man.
See you, folks.
All right. Well, I don't care what you say. That was pretty great. Chris Smither, just what a sweet guy. I really enjoyed that, as you could probably tell. Hopefully you can't tell because that means I fake it sometimes. I'm just kidding. I never do that. But what a lovely guy, Chris Smither, and an amazing musician. I know what I'm going to be listening to this afternoon, and I go through phases, so that's probably what I'm going to be listening to for the next month or so. Chris Smither, just a outstanding, very great to meet him virtually here. Outstanding artist. I knew that beforehand, and that was just a blast. Enough said. I don't need to say anymore. Hope you enjoyed that, folks. Live from Drew's house, another edition. All right. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye now.